Good evening, buenas noches. Welcome to the University of Rochester's Multicultural Visitation Program, a series of webinars meant to highlight the university's efforts at creating and sustaining a diverse, inclusive, and accessible community for all. A program that is an in-person event for prospective students. Due to COVID, we have made this a series of webinars throughout the month of November into early December to help students, their families, and counselors understand how we at the University of Rochester attempt to create and sustain a diverse and inclusive community for all. Tonight's topic is religious diversity on campus, introduction to religious and spiritual life. The University of Rochester is a religiously diverse community, and our policies and procedures at the Interfaith Chapel honor that spirit of diversity. At Rochester, we strive to be both multi-faith and interfaith, meaning that we honor each tradition in its uniqueness, and particularly while also celebrating the diversity and challenges and opportunities that diversity brings by forming an intentional interfaith community in the chapel and the campus at large. This webinar featuring folks from the Interfaith Chapel will introduce you to the university's various religious communities and the activities available through them. Presentation will be followed by a question and answer. During the presentation, though, feel free to add your question to the Q&A feature and it will be addressed at some point. By the end of our time together, you will have contact information for our university presenters. You are encouraged to reach out with additional questions you might have about the university experiences of our students, as well as the resources of these offices aimed at supporting them. My name is Joe Latimer. I serve as Assistant Dean for Enrollment, Diversity, and Outreach in the Office of Admissions at the university. I'm glad you decided to join this event. At this time, I'd like to hand the evening over to Reverend Dr. Denise Yarborough. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. As Joe mentioned, I'm Denise Yarborough. I'm the Director of Religious and Spiritual Life at the University of Rochester. My office is in the Interfaith Chapel, which when you come to campus, you will get to come and see. And I'm going to share with you tonight a broad overview of the Interfaith Chapel and what we do there and what goes on, and then you can ask any questions you may want. One of our chaplains is also here tonight. There might be some others showing up, but at the moment we have our Hindu chaplain here, Sanjay. So if there are any questions about Hindu stuff, you can ask him when we're done with this. So I'm going to now share my screen. So the mission of the Interfaith Chapel is to enhance religious and spiritual life at the university through supporting our affiliated religious communities in their mission to serve members of their particular faith tradition, to provide a place of worship, hospitality, and welcome for all members of the university community. We serve everyone, not just people who claim a religious affiliation, to raise ethical and moral issues of the day within the university community, to serve as a reconciling agency within the university community, to serve as an advocate and support for individuals within the university community, to provide a structure for facilitating communication and understanding between various university offices and departments and the many religious or spiritual groups that we have on our campus and among religious and or spiritual groups at the university. We want to promote interreligious dialogue, education, and action, and we want to reach out and serve the larger general community. The chapel was dedicated, the building that we're now in, on May 24th of 1970. We're actually celebrating in 2020 our 50th anniversary, and we had hoped to be able to really celebrate, like have a big blowout party of some kind, but COVID got in the way of that, so we'll probably be celebrating in our 51st year. We were actually blessed that the chapel where all of this activities of the religious communities happens was built, was a gift of Virginia and Gilbert McCurdy, and they specifically wanted to build a space that was intentionally interfaith. So unlike a lot of university and college campuses across the country that have had to sort of work with, a chapel that was built in the late 19th or early 20th centuries as a Christian church, and then try to turn it into an interfaith space, we're actually lucky that we're in a space that has always been interfaith and was built specifically to house lots of different religious traditions. When the chapel was first built, it was sort of heralded as a big deal, because it was kind of an unusual thing 50 years ago to have a dedicated interfaith space and to have different faith communities coming together, doing an intentional interfaith community, as opposed to just having different faith communities available for students to participate in their own particular tradition, but not necessarily interacting with others. So we got some publicity at the time that we did this. It was a real step forward for the university, because up until then, while our faith communities, we'd had the Catholic and Jewish and Protestant faith communities around for quite some time, they had not had their own space. They'd been worshiping in an auditorium, and the chaplains were spread out around campus in different little offices tucked in various places. So it was a big deal when we got to actually have an actual space that was dedicated to us. Interfaith, obviously in the 21st century, has taken on a little bit of a different tinge than it had 50 years ago. After 9/11, everybody became really aware of how important it is to engage in religious dialogue across many religious traditions. And our chapel began to reflect that increasing commitment to genuine interfaith engagement. We became the home to the University of Rochester Christian Fellowship, which was the African-American group, the Muslim community, Chabad, which was an Orthodox Jewish community, Buddhists, Hindus, and we've even had groups along the way, secular, atheist, agnostic students who choose to become a group and affiliate with the chapel, and various, especially in the last few years, various Asian Christian communities. In 2013, we came up with a new document of policies of affiliation by which religious groups affiliate with the chapel and become part of our community. That was an intentional move to sort of bring all religious communities onto a level playing field. Previously, there'd been sort of a preference for the old guard, the sort of Catholic, Jewish, Protestant triumvirate. And with the 2013 statement, we really wanted to bring in all faith traditions as sort of equal players at the chapel and in the life of the chapel. So this was an important step forward. It requires that all groups that sign on commit to being part of an intentionally interfaith community, and they have to be willing to engage in and support interfaith programming and other initiatives. And it also requires an agreement that they will not proselytize. So we have the Protestant Chapel community. That's one of the older ones. It's been around now for like 52 or 3 years. It provides a place for Christian worship, camaraderie, and thoughtful study of scripture. This is the group that houses sort of all the mainline Protestant denominations like Presbyterians, Lutherans, Episcopalians, United Church of Christ, Methodists, the ones that are called the mainline Protestants. Chaplain Lori Tiberi is the chaplain for that group. They have worship on Sundays, usually at 5 o'clock. This semester, they're worshiping at 4 outdoors because of COVID. They have dinner dialogues on Wednesday nights at 6, which they're doing distance dialogues this semester online. Sunday night dinners, they serve at a local soup kitchen every second Thursday of the month. They do book discussion groups. They do game nights, movie nights, trips off campus, that kind of thing. The University of Rochester Christian Fellowship was started well over 20 years ago as the Black church on campus, but it has now become really the most diverse evangelical Christian faith group on campus. They have a very lively worship on Sundays with a band and lots of music and lots of singing. COVID has made that a little harder for them this year, but they're managing somehow. They do a lot of off-campus engagement with the local community. They go out, in fact, for a number of years, they were worshiping 3 Sundays a month, and on the 4th Sunday of the month, they would go out into the community and do community service in one kind or another. They did a spring break trip to Haiti a couple of years ago. This past year, they did a spring break trip to Mexico just before we all went into lockdown. We have the Newman Roman Catholic community. They have 2 masses on Sunday and 1 in the evening during the week. And actually this semester, he's holding daily masses for students that just want an in-person thing they can come to, because there's not a lot of in-person stuff on campus at this moment. They also provide retreats. They do alternative spring breaks every year. And in the spirit of interfaith, they've often had students join them for their alternative spring break who are not Christian. They've had Muslim students go with them on their alternative spring breaks, and Jewish students. They have a choir and music at their liturgies. They have special holy day observances. They're very engaged in the community and community service events. Father Brian Cool is the priest. He's been here forever. And is much beloved by the students. We also have Sister Leandra Kozmowski, who works with the students a lot. And then there's program staff as well. Newman's a really busy group. They've always got something going on. We have Hillel, which represents the sort of Reform, conservative, Reconstructionist, secular Jewish students. Joy Getnick is the executive director. They do Shabbat observances on and off campus. They do things like challah baking. They engage with the local Jewish community. They have birthright trips to Israel. They have various and sundry educational offerings throughout the year. They do community service. They do alternative spring breaks. Again, it's been tough during COVID this year because there's a lot of those things they can't do right now. But hopefully by the time any of you would be arriving on our campus to be with us, we will be back to the more normal array of activities that are available. We also have Chabad, which is an Orthodox Jewish group. Rabbi Asher Yaros is the rabbi for them. They have their own space just across the river from the campus. They do a very elegant Shabbat dinner every Friday evening at Chabad House. Students can help cook that meal on Thursday. They do a Shabbat lunch every Saturday at Chabad House. Rabbi Asher does coffee with the rabbi. He does Torah study. They do all kinds of holiday observances. They also do birthright trips to Israel. And both Chabad and Hillel, although they represent very different streams of Judaism, they work together pretty cooperatively and they get along and they sort of support each other. And there are occasionally through the year, there are times, especially like at Purim and Hanukkah, that they come together and they do events together. We have a lot of Christian groups. Cru is one that's a sort of national parachurch organization, evangelical Christian organization that's on many campuses across the country. They describe themselves as a caring community, passionate about connecting people to Jesus Christ. It's actually an international organization. They do Bible study, individual spiritual conversations. They do retreats. They do mission trips. We have a Muslim community and it's served by Sister Zainab Abdulayeva. She's the Muslim chaplain. They do Juma prayers in the sanctuary of the chapel every Friday. They do lectures, movie nights, Quran studies at various times throughout the month. Typically in the spring of every year, they do an Islam Awareness Week where they have all week's worth of different observances that they offer to the entire community. It's a way to educate their classmates about Islam. Hijabi for a Day is a very popular event where a lot of women who are not Muslim learn about the hijab and wear the hijab for a day and then have a reflection session at the end of the day with the Muslim community, which has been extremely popular. They do a fast-a-thon and a big dinner. So they're a pretty active community. We have a Hindu Students Association, which is also quite active. They sponsor monthly pujas. Diwali is the big blast that they have in the fall, and Holi, the big blast they do in the spring. This semester, we're struggling a little bit with Diwali because it usually is an enormous big banquet with all kinds of entertainment. And of course, none of that's allowed under the COVID. So we're having to tone things down a bit for that. And in normal times, the HSA will often make temple runs and go to the Hindu temple in town to participate in events there. They're very actively involved in interfaith activities, and Sanjay Mathur is their chaplain. You see him here in some of these pictures, and he's actually here on this call. So if you have any questions for him, he's here to answer them. Other communities that we have at the chapel, we have a Zen meditation group. There's another Christian group called Agape. They're sort of like Cru. They're an evangelical Christian group. And then we have the Students Association for Interfaith Cooperation, which is the student group that is specifically there to arrange and create and hold interfaith events. They bring the communities together for different kinds of things of an interfaith nature. They do education, lectures, discussions, worship, community service. The leaders of SAKE are trained through the Interfaith Youth Corps, which I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. We are, as a chapel, a member of the United Religions Initiative, which I'll tell you about more in a minute also, which offers opportunities for national and international engagement for our students. So the Interfaith Youth Corps and URI are these organizational partners that we work with that are national. Well, IFYC is a national organization. URI is actually an international global organization. URI was founded in 1993 and chartered in the year 2000. It has around the world what they call cooperation circles, which are groups of people who have come together for all kinds of different purposes in communities all over the world. And to be a cooperation circle, you have to have at least 7 members, and they have to represent at least 3 different religious traditions. And then all of these cooperation circles form this major sort of huge global network of people dedicated to various and sundry causes around the world, all with an interfaith focus. And our Interfaith Chapel is a cooperation circle of the United Religions Initiative, and that has actually given our students some opportunities for national and global engagement. The purpose of the URI is to promote enduring daily interfaith cooperation, to end religiously motivated violence, and to create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings. The Interfaith Youth Corps was founded in 2002 by Ibu Patel, who is a Muslim from Chicago. It focuses on facilitating interfaith cooperation on college campuses and providing resources to college campuses for both curricular and extracurricular engagement on and building interfaith leadership. So they hold leadership training institutes for college interfaith leaders every year in Chicago, usually in August. This year they had to do it online in September, but hopefully when the COVID is under control, they'll go back to doing the in-person trainings. They consult with the college interfaith chaplaincies. They provide resources for the college interfaith movement. They're sort of ground zero for all things interfaith on American college campuses. So students that are involved at the chapel in any of the faith communities or in the Student Association for Interfaith Cooperation have a variety of opportunities because of our connections with URI and with IFYC and the work that we do ourselves on campus and the offerings that our various faith communities also offer for leadership development and community service and alternative spring breaks and the like. Students who are interested in interfaith engagement can become an interfaith leader through the Interfaith Leadership Institute training with IFYC. You can become an intern at the chapel. We have 7 interfaith interns at the chapel whose job it is. They get paid to actually do this interfaith work, and they get this interfaith training. The United Religions Initiative has a variety of programs. We've had students go to some of their regional gatherings. We actually worked with them closely at the Parliament of the World Religions in 2018, providing workshops and seminars at the Parliament. So they get a chance to really engage outside of the campus. They have, for a number of years, invited 1 or 2 of our students to go to the United Nations in February for World Interfaith Harmony Week, which is an observance that the United Nations does every year. And our students have actually gone down and spent a couple of days at the United Nations. So we've had some really good experiences with URI. Again, this year, things are sort of in a holding pattern because COVID is just making most of those kinds of things not doable. But we're really hopeful that by next year, things will be a little bit more normal again. I teach a course in the religion department on interfaith relations. So students who are interested in interfaith work and really want to dive deep, you can take a semester-long course with me. The Parliament of the World Religions is another global organization that brings people of hundreds and hundreds of religious traditions together every 3 to 5 years at a different place in the world for this massive conference of 8,000 to 10,000 people, handling all different kinds of topics, talking about things like climate change and empowerment of women and eradicating poverty and overcoming extremism and violence. I mean, you name it, there's groups that are interested in talking about it. In October of 2015, it took place in Salt Lake City, and in November of 2018 in Toronto. And I taught a course with the director of the Intercultural Center, Religion 160. We took 9 students each time to this worldwide gathering, and the students were actually presenting workshops at the Parliament and getting a chance to engage with people from all over the world as a part of that experience, which was a really fun thing for them. Here's a picture of our group that went to the 2018 Parliament in Toronto. And this is them giving their workshops at the Parliament. And so the variety of interfaith initiatives that we've done, we have a labyrinth. We do labyrinth walks a couple of times a month. which is sort of many religious traditions have a version of meditative walking, and the labyrinth has become very popular across religious traditions. So it's a chance to do some quiet, meditative, reflective, get away from all the tension and just center oneself a couple of times a month. SAKE does every year during each semester, we do some kind of off-campus community service. We have worked pretty consistently for the past several years with the Reach Home, which is the housing for the most chronically homeless people in Rochester. The Reach Home is only open from usually mid-November to the end of April. It's an interfaith effort in the community. A variety of faith communities came together to address the problem of the sort of 30 to 40 really chronically homeless people who were very hard to house and get into shelters, who were nonetheless, having to weather a Rochester winter without housing. And the faith community said this does not work and raised money. And every year they're often in a different place. It's often some extra building that a church has that they sort of hand over to Reach for those 4 months. And we house people there. And then faith communities and groups like SAKE go in every evening and provide a hot meal. So SAKE has done that interfaith activity for a number of years now. They do interfaith cafes, which are bi-weekly gatherings for food and conversation on a whole bunch of different topics. We usually have an interfaith banquet in November and one in April. Again, this year we can't do banquets. So last weekend we did an interfaith game night, and the kids did Jeopardy and Kahoot and a scavenger hunt and lots of fun stuff that didn't involve food or entertainment, both of which are sort of not doable under the COVID restrictions, but they had a lot of fun doing their gaming night. Interfaith adventures, trips off campus to the various religious places of worship in the Rochester community. Go to the Islamic Center, the Hindu temple, the Sikh Gurdwara. So students get a chance to sort of go out and sample the different world religious traditions that are available in the larger community. And then lots of different kinds of interfaith dialogue, lectures, invited speakers on a variety of interfaith topics. Last year, we had a whole initiative where we were looking at the intersection of religion and science, and we had some really good speakers come in and talk on that particular issue. Every year, there's like a different focus. Again, this year, we've not been able to do quite as much because of COVID, but again, hopefully by next year, that will not be the case. So that's the Interfaith Chapel in a nutshell. I'd be happy to take questions.
Denise, you are joined by, looks like 2 staff members. Might they introduce themselves? I don't know who the other person is that shared.
Well, Sanjay is there. I don't know who the other one is. Sanjay's there, and the other one that's got my name, I'm not sure who's there. Sanjay, you want to say hi? He was there earlier, but I don't know where he is now.
Yeah. We do have a question. The question is, are services open to all?
Yes, all of our faith communities allow anybody to attend their services, whether or not you are a member of their faith community. In fact, they actually encourage it, because part of what we're about as an interfaith community is wanting people to have the opportunity to learn about other faith traditions. So anybody can go to anybody's worship. And in fact, that often happens. People do that a lot.
Denise, can you add your email address into the chat? Make sure that you send it to all panelists and attendees. This way,
Sure.
If you have questions, they can reach out to you. I will do the same as a member of the Office of Admissions. You are free to reach out to me with any questions that you have about.
Okay, I'm seeing there is one person asking, is there a Quaker community? And the answer to that is not on our campus, but there is one in Rochester. So if a student comes to U of R and is interested in finding a Quaker community, we can help get you in touch with the off-campus group. We don't have enough students on campus to form a group, unfortunately.
Denise, there's another question about.
If you want to get in touch with any of the faith groups on campus, just go to the Interfaith Chapel's website, and under faith communities, you can find the contact information for all of the chaplains. We don't have any Wiccan or pagan groups within the UR community. I know there are Wiccan and pagan students on campus. And again, it's the kind of thing, if we got enough students who were interested in forming a group, we'd be happy to house them at the chapel. And then if they got enough of them together, you could actually become a formally recognized student group. We have had the odd pagan student here and there over the years, but we haven't ever had a situation where there were enough of them that they wanted to form a group, but we'd be totally open to it if somebody wanted to.
Sanjay, would you like to say a few things?
Sure. So I'm Sanjay Mathur. I'm the Hindu chaplain at the UFR, and I'm pleased to be a part of the group. We are truly interfaith. We are now preparing for Diwali, which is an annual event at the chapel. Due to COVID, we are a little restrained because of typically tough restrictions, and we do our prayers here. And it's nice to be participating, and we have students for Diwali coming from every faith. So it's just not about Hinduism. We truly promote anybody who can come and be a part of these festive activities. I'll share my email address with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. So we'll give it another 30 seconds to see if there are any final questions that our audience members have. You do have contact information in the chat. You also have some links. Make sure you click those before you exit the webinar, as once they're gone, then you'll have to attempt to find those at the rochester.edu website, which shouldn't be problematic by just searching for the Interfaith Chapel. Denise and Sanjay, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's conversation. We certainly do appreciate your commitment to helping prospective students, family members understand the university experience and how we attempt to create an inclusive environment for all. It's readily apparent that we do that on campus by way of your presentation. It's important for us to remember that we also are committed to the city of Rochester. We can't and don't want to exist in a bubble, but our efforts include the local community as well. There are additional multicultural visitation webinar programs for prospective students and family members to consider. The MVP landing page is going to be published in the chat in just a second. There it is. Thank you, Colleen. You are encouraged to continue to investigate the forthcoming webinars. They're typically every Tuesday and Thursday. So in a couple of days, we'll have 2 more. There's another one on Sunday afternoon with current students and a member of the admissions office. On that note, we want to wish everybody a safe and pleasant evening. Thanks again for your interest in the University of Rochester, and we look forward to helping you understand the manner in which we as a University of Community care for one another and the local community. Best wishes to all. Have a great evening and be well. Good night.
Right.
Good night.